Shintaro is a lonely boy with no friends who hides in his apartment all day. However, everything changes when an adorable angel bursts into his home and begs him to let her stay in exchange for making him happy in any way she can. It all begins when the angel Towa is sent to Earth with orders to study humanity and is awestruck by its beauty upon arriving in the human world. She reflects on how people take for granted the sights that brought her so much joy as she sets out to understand human life. Meanwhile, Shintaro starts walking home after a long day at work when he encounters a stray kitten, thinking about how lonely he is since he doesn't even have a pet. He finally arrives at his studio apartment, where he recently moved away from his parents to work and study, collapsing onto his bed exhausted as soon as he gets home. When he wakes up the next day, the first thing he does is pour himself some milk, but he's startled to find the apartment window wide open. He panics, fearing his belongings might be stolen, but when he gets to the window, he's startled to see Towa asleep on her balcony, causing him to spill some milk on her. Towa wakes with a start, introduces herself, and confesses that she has nowhere else to sleep, which is why she's been sleeping on his balcony. The flustered Shintaro rushes to give her some of his clothes after she undresses, showing off her goddess-like figure. Towa says it's the first time she's ever slept and insists on cooking. She brings him dinner but can't find the ingredients, so she offers to clean his apartment instead, only to stumble upon an adult magazine the inexperienced boy had hidden. When the two finally start talking, Towa reveals that she is an angel sent to Earth by a higher power to observe humanity. This leads Shintaro to believe he's brought a mental patient home, and he panics, dragging Towa outside with him as he heads to work, begging her to go back home. However, he can't concentrate on work all day and instead remains in a trance that even his manager notices. It's finally time for him to start walking back to his apartment, thinking how glad he is that the angel is gone, only to find Towa walking with a strange old man down the street. When asked where she's going, Towa says the man offered to take her to a seedy hotel so they could have sex, leaving the old man red-faced. Instinctively, Shintaro takes Towa's hand and quickly leads her back to his apartment. He scolds her for trusting strangers, but exhaustion overwhelms him, and he collapses to the floor, only to wake up in his own bed with Towa near his feet. While he slept, Towa had prepared a porridge of bread and milk laced with sugar to make Shintaro feel better, and she feeds it to him. It is then that Towa reveals she had flown him home, which worries Shintaro, but she says it's no big deal. This leaves Shintaro doubtful until Towa convinces him by revealing her angel wings, which finally leads him to accept her claims and offer to let her stay if she truly has nowhere else to go. The next day, Shintaro wakes up and immediately finds himself in nervous mode when he sees Towa curled up beside him, only for her to say there was only one bed, so he decides to buy a new one as soon as possible. On the way to the convenience store for breakfast, Towa gets overly excited about a store sale, and her wings appear, prompting Shintaro to hide her until she calms down. This leads her to explain how her wings appear whenever her emotions get the better of her, as she claims she read about Earth in a guide for angels. This makes Shintaro curious, and he asks her what an angel's duties are. Towa replies that they have to deliver God's word to humans and help them on their journey from Earth to heaven while keeping humans happy. But she confesses that she doesn't know what human happiness entails, which is why she was sent to Earth in the first place. The deep conversation comes to a halt when Towa raves about the steamed buns, asking Shintaro to feed her them every day. This triggers a panic in Shintaro about his budget and how he'd never cover meals for two. He ends up buying groceries and household essentials with Towa, who's as excited as a schoolgirl on a field trip after seeing the large crowds and lively atmosphere of the mall. Despite Shintaro telling her to stay put, she jumps up and gets excited over a mug with a cat on it that she really wants, but feels she's being pushy and puts it back. Later, Shintaro lets her buy new clothes that are within their budget after a crowd gathers near Towa, mistaking her for a cosplayer, and Towa is more than delighted with the clothes. She tries them on and reflects on how kind Shintaro was to her, promising to make him happy in any way he desires, which leaves nearby listeners in awe. After a store manager mistakes Shintaro and Towa for a couple, they rush out of the store and are whisked back to her apartment. Shintaro collapses under the weight of the heavy bags, but Towa is energized by the fun ride and practically faints with joy when she finds the cat mug hidden among her purchases, which Shintaro had secretly bought for her. The two go to sleep in the same bed once again because, in his excitement, he had forgotten to buy a new one. The next day, Towa tells Shintaro how she had gotten to his balcony the other night. She was staring at a passing train, recalling descriptions of human transportation from her book about angels, mesmerized by its speed, pressing super close, and finally startling a passenger who glimpsed her floating outside the window. This caused her to head for higher ground, where she could be alone atop a building, contemplating her mission, which the guide stated gave angels two methods for approaching humans, either to dramatically reveal themselves with radiant light and outstretched wings, or to conceal their divinity and blend in. Towa, unsure of which to choose, observed the bustling streets. Below, people absorbed in their daily routines. The thought of interrupting them felt intrusive. Before she could fulfill her divine duties, fatigue overwhelmed her, and without shelter, she drifted past an unlocked window in Shintaro's apartment complex. Assuming the room was unoccupied, she slipped inside to rest, only to be discovered by Shintaro the next day. After hearing the full story about his new roommate, all Shintaro could do was feel relieved that she hadn't come to harm, until that evening when he rejoiced in the impressive chef chef-level meal Towa had cooked. Although it was a simple meal made with store-bought ingredients and cooked into hot dishes, Shintaro was fixated on the idea after relying on convenience store meals for so long, particularly the seasoned potatoes, wondering how he could ever get used to someone cooking for him. Towa was overjoyed when he praised her cooking and admitted he'd learned from the guide, prompting him to reflect on the promise she'd made to keep him happy and how her presence was already making a positive difference in his life. Towa noticed he was using his own hands and worried that he didn't like the food, but Shintaro reassured her and hesitantly offered to help her in return. Towa declined, saying that being allowed to live rent-free in her home was more than enough, but she finally mustered up the courage and asked him for a favor after dinner, to show her how to use the bathroom. Shintaro gladly does this, guiding her through the bathroom and detailing each step, including closing the curtain, adjusting the dial, and filling the tub. Towa thanks him, and once she starts washing, Shintaro's cool guy act crumbles as the reality of sharing his home with a beautiful girl makes his head spin. He imagines her charms in the bathroom, eventually trying to distract himself with the TV, only for the nervous thoughts to invade his head once more. He slaps his foolish self back to the present and berates himself for focusing, using an upcoming English exam as a flimsy excuse that is later discarded when he has to go to the bathroom. Towa screams when he enters the bathroom with her naked, having forgotten that the bathroom was occupied, but then offers to hide behind the shower curtain while he uses it. However, the embarrassment had killed his urgency, and when he goes to shower afterward, he thinks about establishing some ground rules and designated times to avoid future accidents. The same thing happens the next day when Shintaro wakes up exhausted and heads to the bathroom, only for Towa to walk in and see his manhood. They both ignore it, and later, while having breakfast, Shintaro realizes it's his third day living with his peculiar roommate and understands it's time for school. As Towa begs him to let her walk him home and keep him company, Shintaro refuses, telling her to spend the day watching TV until he finishes, arguing that it's his duty as a student to study, just as it's his duty to educate and make humans happy. Towa finally relents, and Shintaro starts walking to school when his friend Shuichi appears behind him, looking terrified. But before Shintaro can fully react, his friend Tsumugi appears. She and Shuichi notice how pale and ghostly Shintaro looks, and he lies about simply having to work overtime. Later that day, the three friends sit together at lunchtime, and Tsumugi asks if Shintaro is just going to have some vegetable juice for lunch, which he confirms because he had eaten a huge breakfast and couldn't bring himself to tell his friends the truth. Tsumugi shyly offers to cook him an extra lunch if he's having trouble getting enough nutrition between work and school. But before Shintaro can answer, he notices Towa lurking outside the window and jumps out. He whispers to her to meet him on the rooftop, where he lectures her about showing up despite his warnings, but calms down when he learns that she was worried because he was hungry and had prepared lunch for him. He asks if Towa would like to eat with him, to which she readily agrees. While they eat, Shintaro thinks everything went well since Towa had tried hard to remain discreet and not many people had noticed her, and she had even gone to the trouble of preparing more potatoes, which he had loved the day before. Towa leaves him after lunch and returns to her apartment. That night, when Shintaro returns, he apologizes to Towa for his reaction at school and thanks her for the lunch she had prepared, which she dismisses as nothing, though she regrets flying so openly. Shintaro agrees, saying that the wings would surprise anyone passing by. It is then that he notices the laundry has been done and the apartment is clean thanks to Towa, but he is stunned to learn that she had also washed his dirty underwear, something that deeply embarrasses him. His jaw drops even wider when he finds an embroidered bear Towa had sewn to hide a hole in his boxers, prompting Shintaro to firmly declare that he'll be washing his own underwear from now on. Meanwhile, Tsumugi relaxes in her bathroom, her face flushed, thinking about how she hallucinated Shintaro with a girl who had angel wings. She scolds herself for not having the courage to ask Shintaro if he could make her lunch and resolves to ask him the next day. However, Towa is hurt that Shintaro decided to sleep on the floor, and her mind goes paranoid as she starts wondering if he hates her. Shintaro reassures her and reminds her about personal space and boundaries, but her mood only worsens when he reminds her that he has to work after school and won't be home until very late, causing Towa to shed a few tears. Shintaro cheers her up by telling her he's the luckiest boy in the world because he gets to come home and enjoy Towa's delicious food before heading off to school. When lunchtime arrives at school, Shuichi and Tsumugi are surprised by the homemade lunch Shintaro brought before Tsumugi could even offer to cook for her crush. Shintaro comes up with a flimsy excuse about rescuing an old woman from an accident and having packed his lunch. Tsumugi watches as he opens his lunchbox, revealing a heart-shaped omelet, and suspects a girl packed it for him, but he leaves before she can confirm her worst nightmare. As he walks away feeling guilty for lying, a self-proclaimed fortune teller stops him and warns him about the trouble with girls to come before trying to scam him. Shintaro runs away from the old woman and heads to work, where the manager reminds him that he'll be working with a new employee starting today. Shintaro ruins his first date by finding a girl named Noelle changing, and the sight of her underwear sends him into a frenzy before Noelle slaps him. Noelle finally introduces herself, and Shintaro tries to lighten the mood by asking if she was born on Christmas because of her name, but his joke falls flat. Noelle and Shintaro finish their shifts and are about to go home when the manager asks them to try the new parfaits he'd left in the employee refrigerator. As the two go go downstairs, the sight of the cherry parfait reminds Shintaro of Noel's underwear, which Noel notices and becomes incredibly embarrassed, causing a snowstorm to appear out of nowhere. Shintaro initially thinks it's a problem with the air conditioning, but Noel reveals that she's a Yuki Onna, the mythical snow woman from Japanese folklore, who could conjure storms when she felt embarrassed or her emotions ran high. To her surprise, Shintaro believes her because he had an angel at home, so a snow woman wasn't out of the question. This seems to calm her as the two rush out to avoid freezing in the restaurant and find a park bench to enjoy their parfaits. There, Noel opens up about her years of loneliness. Her family had carried the powers of the snow woman for generations, and to avoid activating her power, she had become a solitary girl who watched anime and read manga all day without friends. This part-time job was her attempt to connect with people, but she believed Shintaro had ruined it. However, Shintaro calls Noel brave for trying to reconnect with society, which makes her cry. She asks if they could be friends, to which Shintaro gladly agrees. Their sweet moment is interrupted when they notice a white feather fall to the ground and see Toa flying over Noel, and it gets even worse when Tsumugi, who had gone out to buy ice cream, accidentally catches a glimpse of the strange scene and realizes that her mind hadn't been playing tricks on her when she saw Toa with wings. The chaotic encounter between the four escalates as questions arise, and Tsumugi admits she saw Toa's wings at school but dismissed it as exhaustion. Oblivious to the tension, Toa cheerfully explains that she flew to find Shintaro because he was running late and asks if he'd mind having peppers in his omelet rice for dinner. Noel fixates on the wings, demanding confirmation of their authenticity. Shintaro hides and tells them to be quiet because they're too much to handle. He then attempts damage control by urging everyone to pretend nothing happened, but Tsumugi refuses to admit she couldn't simply stop seeing what she saw. Shintaro realizes logic won't work when explaining mythical creatures. When Tsumugi presses her, Toa confirms she's an angel sent to study humans on Earth, which fascinates Noel, who finds Toa adorable and a complete contrast to her stoic image of angels. She compliments Toa, comparing her to her favorite anime and game characters. Common sense kicks in for Tsumugi as she's been flustered by all the attention Shintaro's getting from other girls. She puts two and two together, Toa's strange appearance and the cute lunchbox she'd brought the other day. Though hurt that Shintaro lied to her, she promises to keep it a secret, but not before asking Toa why she chose Shintaro, only to receive the innocent reply that she fell asleep on his balcony. This infuriates her, and she lectures Shintaro about going to great lengths for strangers. Trying to stop thinking about Toa, Tsumugi turns to Noel, who was notorious as the ice queen of the school hallways for her cold demeanor. But Shintaro intervenes before Noel can freeze him again and explains that they work together. This leads Noel to ask if Toa and Tsumugi were her friends, which is soon confirmed. Tsumugi is hurt by the imbalance of Noel calling the other two by their first names and her by her last. She doesn't stay sad for long though, because Noel jumps in and proudly declares that she was a snow woman, which makes Toa and Tsumugi laugh until she conjures a small storm that leaves them stunned. Noel explains that she revealed her secret to Toa and Tsumugi because she now considered them friends, and friends don't keep secrets from each other. This makes Tsumugi feel left out as she blurts out an embarrassing secret from her childhood, leaving everyone speechless. Toa, however, is amazed by Noel's honesty and the three girls bond. Toa lets Tsumugi touch her wings before Tsumugi tells her to call her by her first name. Shintaro returns home exhausted after dealing with three energetic girls after work, and Toa worries that he was angry at her for her reckless behavior. Shintaro reassures her, reminding her that he wasn't angry and simply wanted her to stay safe. This prompts Toa to comment on his kindness and how he attracted the right kind of people with his pure heart. This puts Shintaro at ease until he wakes with a start from a nightmare the next day. In the nightmare, men in suits had come to kidnap the angel and ice woman who were hiding in his apartment, but Toa confirms to the sleep-deprived boy that it was just a dream. He heads to school only to find Tsumugi in a worse state than he is, not from exposure to supernatural creatures, but because she imagines her beloved Shintaro getting close to other women. This leads her to bluntly ask Shintaro if he's dating Toa or Noel, to which he firmly replies no, relieving Tsumugi of her jealous misery. At that moment, Shuichi overhears them and asks about Toa, but Tsumugi lies, saying she's a distant relative of Shintaro's who stays with him and makes his lunch. Shuichi asks Toa to make his lunch too, but stops when Tsumugi tells him to forget it. Later, after school, Shintaro finds Noel waiting for him by the shoe lockers. She asks him to hang out with her since they're now friends, but Shintaro reminds her that they both have to work, which disappoints her, and she leaves. At the restaurant, Noel reveals her true nature as a friendless girl with her friend proposal, which escalates to the point where the manager asks if the two are dating. Noel had gone so far as to demand to be put on the same shifts as Shintaro for the next month. Shintaro feels even worse when Toa and Tsumugi appear with their ulterior motive of keeping an eye on him during his shift. They bond over cold drinks and melon soda, while Tsumugi reflects on how perfectly Toa has fit into Shintaro's life. When she goes to the restroom, Toa starts serving customers until Shintaro stops her and confesses that she didn't want to be a burden or the reason he was working while still a student. He comforts her, saying he wanted to experience working life while he was in school, which cheers her up. Meanwhile, his manager manager takes Noel aside and tells him that his attitude was too cheerful and he needs to tone it down, which annoys the Ice Queen. She turns cold and declares that she can't be friends with Shintaro while at work and asks the manager to remove her from all of his shifts the following month, much to the manager's amusement, who thinks the poor boy has been abandoned in a single day. The next night, Shintaro notices many changes in his daily life since Toa has moved in with him. The most obvious difference is a rice cooker next to the television, which has replaced his usual microwavable rice packets. He finds its location odd since it's not in the kitchen, but Toa explains that her small kitchen has no available space or electrical outlets, which Shintaro humbly understands, as that's precisely why he's never used one before. When Toa insists that the location next to the television is practical for serving rice, Shintaro agrees it's fine. That very night, Shintaro's curiosity got the better of him, and he asked Toa what angels usually ate in heaven. She amazed him by describing the abundant food growing on celestial trees, which included not only fruits and nuts but also hot meals ready to be picked. Shintaro found the whole concept fantastic and appealing. Toa added that cooking had been her hobby even in heaven, which explained her skill in the kitchen to Shintaro. When his plate was empty, Toa offered more rice, but Shintaro declined, getting up to serve himself since the pot was conveniently nearby, admitting that its placement made things easier. Meanwhile, in her room, Tsumugi was preoccupied with Shintaro more than usual. She recalled him mentioning plans to take Toa somewhere and his concern about not having a transit card. When he asked for her advice on buying one for Toa, Tsumugi suggested starting with paper tickets first so Toa could learn the system, a practical idea Shintaro appreciated. Later, alone with her thoughts, Tsumugi imagined receiving a smart card from Shintaro as a precious gift. Her mind drifted back to earlier conversations with Shintaro about his living situation and how his parents had moved abroad for work, but he had chosen to stay in Japan because he wanted to attend high school there while living in his aunt's apartment instead of a dormitory. After convincing her parents to let her live independently, Tsumugi felt grateful to Shintaro's aunt, Mako, for making their meeting possible. When Shuichi intervened, advising Shintaro to keep his independent living situation a secret to avoid unwanted visitors, Tsumugi nodded proudly, though inwardly she felt special for being among the few who knew this personal detail about Shintaro. His openness with them made her feel special, reinforcing her growing love for him. These warm feelings were often followed by sadness when she thought of Toa and Noel's presence in her life, leading her to regret not having confessed her feelings before these superpowered girls entered the picture. Later at home, Tsumugi's mother noticed her distracted state, and when pressed, Tsumugi joked about possibly being descended from some mythical creature. Her mother quickly calmed her down, saying that being normal also required effort, but Tsumugi ignored this, trying to build her own confidence since she wanted to get closer to Shintaro and hoped he would reciprocate her feelings. When her younger brother interrupted her and asked for snacks, she saw her opportunity when her mother remembered a donut shop coupon she had won and gave it to Tsumugi, who imagined using it on Shintaro. However, the next day at school, Shuichi discovered the coupon in Tsumugi's possession before she could ask Shintaro out. In his excitement, he suggested they all go together after school, but then he remembered his cleaning duties and club meeting, which Tsumugi initially saw as another missed opportunity, but then realized it meant she and Shintaro would be going alone together. Shintaro felt bad about using the coupon without Shuichi, but Tsumugi assured him it was fine, secretly excited to be alone with him. Before leaving, they stopped at the library, where Shintaro browsed books about angels and other mythical creatures. His newfound interest stemmed from realizing how little he knew about the supernatural beings that had entered his life, and Tsumugi found his genuine curiosity charming, even though she teased him for researching such topics. As they read, Shintaro dozed off from the dense material, and she eventually sat down beside him, taking the opportunity to admire his peaceful expression. She finally admitted to herself the feelings she had for Shintaro, and by the time they woke up, it was pouring rain, trapping them in the library longer than they had planned. Tsumugi was too nervous to let their date be cancelled and ran out into the rain, yelling for Shintaro to follow her. When they finally went outside, Tsumugi gave her umbrella to a child in need, leaving her to share Shintaro's. Their close proximity made her very nervous. Although Shintaro remained oblivious to everything, focused on getting to the bakery before it closed, the time they spent together eating donuts seemed quite normal to both of them, and was a stark contrast to the supernatural people who had recently entered Shintaro's life. The next day, Shintaro had to overcome another obstacle, walking home from school with Noel. Although Shintaro was initially worried about conversation topics, Noel filled the silence with enthusiastic comments about her favorite anime and manga, which made Shintaro feel comfortable until his social awkwardness became apparent when he brought up the idea of sharing diaries between friends. Her excitement for their first outing with friends increased even more when she bought them ice cream. Shintaro thought about how, despite being a snow woman, she complained about her brain freezing, which made him laugh when he realized he expected her to be immune to the cold. Noelle later confessed that she had stayed up planning their time together, nervous and excited about her first experience with a real friend. She nearly fainted when Shintaro walked her almost all the way home and told her they would see each other again soon. Later, at home, while she was changing, she smiled at the ice cream wrapper she had saved from their date. The next day was a peaceful morning, with sunlight gently spilling into the apartment. apartment, casting a warm gold light throughout the room. Toa hummed to herself as she bustled around the kitchen, preparing a familiar and comforting dish of braised vegetables that happened to be Shintaro's favorite. A strange sound outside on the balcony broke her rhythm, and when Toa went to investigate, her jaw dropped to the floor when she saw a dusty little angel named Shu standing there. Upon seeing her, Shu called out Toa's name and hugged her tightly, but Toa was confused by Shu's appearance and asked what she was doing there. Shu admitted that she had failed to land and was now covered in dust. She entered the apartment, and after checking her for injuries, Toa declared it was bath time to get Shu impeccably clean. Later, Shintaro sat next to the two angels while Toa recounted the visit, and Shu introduced herself as an angel younger than Toa. She quickly grabbed Toa, trying to make a quick getaway because the boy's apartment stank, but Shintaro said that flying off the balcony would attract unwanted attention. She didn't calm down until Toa offered her some milk, while Shintaro whispered about not being familiar with angels who loved milk so much. Toa continued praising her master Shintaro, who had done so much for her, but Shu failed to connect the dots that Shintaro was the strange man sitting right next to them, and she began to get angry at Toa for going to such lengths for a lowly human. But Toa raved about all the wonderful things she was learning from Shintaro, which only infuriated Shu further. Once calmer, Shu complained that Toa should come back with her, but Toa explained that she had been sent to Earth to learn about humans, and Shu argued that staying in a small room wasn't the way to do that. But Shintaro said it was dangerous for an angel like Toa to travel alone outside, which made Shu complain that Toa deserved better than a loser, and then she turned on Shintaro, accusing him of having doubts about living with an angel. But Shintaro just shook his head, saying that he enjoyed the surprises she brought to his boring daily life, only for Shu to call him a commoner. But Shintaro just smiled, saying that he appreciated how much she cared for Toa, and then Shu insisted that humans were liars who were always trying to get laid with pretty girls. But Toa grabbed her cheeks and shouted in protest, defending Shintaro as kind and trustworthy. This caused Shu, who was on the verge of tears, to call Toa a fool and run away. When Toa and Shintaro finally chased after her, they found her on the roof, as angels felt most at home in high places. After Toa cheered her up, she turned to Shintaro, telling him how she still considered him a loser. But Toa must have seen something in him to choose him as her teacher and mentor, which relieved Shintaro. After a heartfelt hug, Shu's necklace lit up with a timer as a voice announced her return in 60 seconds. As Shu begged to stay, she vanished with a puff of smoke. Once the little girl left, Toa admitted that Shu's words had affected her for not having done enough to learn about humanity, and Shintaro agreed, suggesting that they go out together after dinner every day so that she could safely learn about the outside world. So, over the next few days, they established a new routine. During their walks, Shintaro taught her basic rules, like waiting for the signal to cross at pedestrian crossings. Then one night, while they were at an intersection, Toa stopped Shintaro from stepping forward too soon, pointing out that the signal hadn't changed yet. She smiled triumphantly, and Shintaro agreed, thinking about how Toa was learning to navigate the busy human world. One day, Toa got very excited watching fruit sandwiches on television and was amazed when she learned that the commercials were real and not fiction. This prompted Shintaro to suggest an outing for fruit sandwiches, which would also be an opportunity to teach Toa how to use the train, something he had previously postponed because he didn't want to leave Toa alone in a train station with strange men. But despite everything, the two find themselves eating amazing fruit sandwiches and enjoying a date day while rowing in a swan boat after Toa's curiosity gets the better of them. However, being mistaken for a couple by an elderly woman triggers Shintaro's nervousness, leading to an awkward conversation about physical contact once they're alone. This forces Toa to let go of his hand, as it was too sensitive for the lonely boy to handle so suddenly. Toa is hurt by how Shintaro started acting like a stranger when she'd been there for him through everything recently. Nevertheless, Toa is there to help him when a passing woman knocks her over, and he reflects on how foolish he'd been with the sweetest girl who had blessed his life. The two resolve their differences and continue with their earlier plan to get dango from a nearby shop. On the way back, the night was quiet when Toa asked about dinner. Shintaro, keeping an eye on the time, suggested they both get hot meals at convenience stores. After doing so, the two returned to their apartment complex only to find a woman named Mako passed out outside their door. She woke up and hurriedly greeted Shintaro in a frenzy, then stole their meals and devoured them once inside their apartment. Shintaro told Toa that Mako was his aunt, who had bought the apartment they were currently living in, and that she was a manga artist. When Toa asked about manga, Shintaro pulled out a nearby comic book, leaving Miyako stunned because he didn't own any of the manga she had written. He then further soured the atmosphere by apologizing for devouring their food, explaining that he had been hungry and sleep-deprived for the past 3 days due to his hectic schedule. While Shintaro's stomach growled audibly, Toa moved to cook, but Miyako interrupted her, pulling a cake from her bag and revealing that it was her birthday. No one, not even her editor, had remembered, and the admission came with a flood of tears as she confessed to having bought her own birthday cake. The somber moment dissolved into impromptu festivities as Shintaro and Toa wished their depressed aunt a happy birthday, with Toa offering a tissue for Miyako's tears. It wasn't until then that the dense Miyako questioned Toa's presence between bites of cake, and Shintaro scrambled to come up with a half-usable casual excuse about her being a friend on the summer festival planning committee and how the two of them were having a meeting. Miyako didn't quite buy it and instead mocked Shintaro, saying Towa was an absolute angel, which made him blush as Miyako dredged up embarrassing stories from his childhood. She promises to bring photos the next time she visits when she sees Towa's eyes light up at the prospect of seeing Shintaro embarrassed. Then, Towa goes to make some tea, and Miyako again comments that she's angelic, which makes Shintaro even more stiff. This only worsens when Miyako ups the ante on the weirdness factor and offers to marry Shintaro to Towa to make her part of the family. Shintaro misunderstood and blushed, calling her simply a friend. Later, when Miyako goes to the bathroom, she asks why Shintaro has 2 toothbrushes if he lives alone. To avoid accusations of being a womanizer, he pretends to have OCD to keep his secret hidden, but his lie catches up with him when Miyako mentions how late it is and that they should walk Towa home, causing Shintaro to panic about his homeless angel. As the three of them leave, Towa asks Shintaro what to do, and he tells her to pretend they're leaving her alone so he can fly back to the balcony where he'll let her in. Before leaving, Miyako is very affectionate with Towa and confesses that Shintaro is dense but a good guy, and it would mean a lot to her if Towa came to visit him sometime. Shintaro is relieved that his plan somehow worked. However, his plan backfires when Miyako decides to spend the night at his place, while Towa watches like an abandoned puppy from the window. Later that night, Miyako's editor bursts into Shintaro's apartment and tells him to get back to work, given his busy schedule. He then reveals that he had secretly bought a cake and wished Miyako a happy birthday, which made her cry tears of joy as she completely forgot about her depression. The editor apologizes to Shintaro for the trouble and leaves with Miyako. Once they leave, Shintaro quickly takes Towa inside and apologizes for keeping her on the balcony, and then apologizes for how her aunt had treated her. But Towa smiles, thinking about how lively her family was and how lucky she was to be able to see them all together, deepening her understanding of how human bonds work. The next day, as Shintaro hurries home, hoping to find Towa's dinner ready, his path crosses with that of a distressed girl with an eye patch fleeing 2 men. Shintaro's instincts kick in, and he helps her escape. After catching her breath, the girl introduces herself as Leilishka and thanks Shintaro. Her explanation of the chase becomes increasingly surreal, mentioning vampire hunters and a centuries-old feud with the descendants of Professor Van Helsing. Before Shintaro can process this, Leilishka declares herself a vampire noblewoman from Transylvania, while Shintaro mentally facepalms at his group of supernatural girls. The enormous dramatic weight of Leilishka's absurd claims about vampires collapsed on Shintaro harder than his red-colored contact lenses, which chose the most awkward moment to fall out during her monologue about greatness and power. And as the lenses tumbled down his cheeks, she made a sad excuse about dry eyes causing the mishap, but muttered about how she had just wasted money on new contact lenses. And the single naturally red eye peeking out from behind her eye patch might have salvaged some credibility for her, if not for her immediate switch to calculating replacement lens costs, revealing her to be a fraud. Shintaro found himself trapped in the world's strangest charity case, unable to extricate himself from this mess as Leilishka dragged him to her workplace, a maid cafe, where the only thing more artificial than the decor was her vampire persona. The boy eventually managed to escape and abandoned Leilishka's bizarre gothic condition as the main character syndrome, an affliction where victims believe the universe revolves around their backstory. Towa's eyes widened when she heard this, prompting Shintaro to launch into a patient explanation of how some girls believe the world revolves around them. However, Shintaro doesn't stay calm for long as he wakes up to the distinct sensation of something wet on his neck. It was Leilishka, who had not only followed his trail to his house, but had also scaled a building to deliver the strangest midnight attack. While Shintaro panics and explains that his house is being invaded, and then sees that she's floating above him, Towa mistakes the late-night visit for friendly company and begins treating Leilishka like a guest, but Shintaro is quick to try and put an end to it. When he finally fails, he ends up giving a lecture on boundaries, while Leilishka maintains the audacity to claim that she's a vampire who respects boundaries and never drinks the blood of someone who hasn't given her consent. However, everything changes when she begins to demonstrate her buoyancy and extend her fangs, which would have been convincing according to Shintaro if it weren't for the way she keeps adjusting her contact lenses, essentially admitting to supernatural cultural appropriation. The confrontation reached its inevitable conclusion when sheer exhaustion at that late hour forced the three of them to share a bed, a situation no one was keen on. With Leilishka still muttering snack requests, the next morning brought relief in the form of an empty apartment, although Towa's sudden panic over vampires exploding in the sun sent Shintaro into a downward spiral, imagining ashes on his balcony. Things cleared up at school during lunch when the goth girl humbly appeared as he sat outside eating his meal. Now wearing a school uniform, she revealed that she had been a student in the same year but a different class as Shintaro, and her real name was Sayuri. Shintaro was unimpressed and tried to back away from her, but it was no use. The attempt at peace failed when some of his classmates pointed out Sayuri's poorly executed stalking outside their classroom, and Tsumugi commented on how her hoodie did nothing to help with stealth. Later that day, just as Tsumugi's study notes offered Shintaro a return to normalcy by reminding him of upcoming exams, a familiar familiar creature called a bat appeared with an invitation letter for Shintaro, who was already fed up with the strange encounters. When he started following the winged rodent, he was led to an abandoned club room where Sayuri had prepared the worst job offer imaginable: eternal servitude. However, her emotional breakdown when he told her no revealed the tragic truth about how she had misinterpreted Shintaro's stance as a personal rejection, proving to Shintaro that even self-proclaimed vampires are not immune to drama. Just as things were about to explode, the intervention team arrived in the form of Tsumugi and Noel. Noel and Sayuri quickly went from being distant to becoming best friends, recognizing that neither of them thought the other mythical creature existed, and in the end, Shintaro reluctantly agreed and allowed the goth girl to visit his place from time to time as long as she used the front door. As she folds laundry and looks out the window the next day, Tawa realizes it's the first time the weather has changed since she arrived on Earth. Meanwhile, in the occult research club room, Shintaro and his friends breathe a sigh of relief after finally finishing their exams. The group begged him to study together, but he hesitated to do so at home because of Toa. Then it was Sayuri who suggested studying in the occult research club room. Tsumugi carried the brunt of the help, and Shintaro agrees that if it weren't for her, they would have failed. Everyone is grateful, but Shintaro's words catch her attention, and she becomes flustered, realizing it's the first time he's called her Tsumugi. Panicked, she insists everyone leave. As they decide to go, Noel suggests a cafe along the way. Shintaro agrees and invites Sayuri, calling her by her real name. She responds with a dramatic pose, refusing to tolerate any disrespect. She asks them to call her Lilishka, explaining her origins, and when they call her a hoax, Sayuri once again strikes a pose and says that she is the one who chooses her name. As they're about to leave and open the door, a strange girl slips and falls right in front of Shintaro. The girl falls to the ground, and as she looks at Shintaro, tears begin to well up in her eyes and she starts to cry. Sayuri introduces her as Hisui, the other member of their club. Shintaro sees the terrified girl and tries to introduce himself to make things right, but Hisui hides behind Sayuri, leading him to believe that she hates him. Sayuri dramatically explains that Hisui hates humans and can't stand them, but Hisui argues that she's just a shy girl who suffers from social anxiety. Shintaro asks Sayuri if she wants to come with them. Hisui is surprised when Sayuri agrees and drags her along, explaining that the occult research club only had third-year members and would have disbanded after they graduated, but then she and Hisui join. However, the club would be disbanded without new members, so Sayuri tries to convince Shintaro to join by offering air conditioning and soft drinks. Noel and Tsumugi also wanted to join if Shintaro did. Hisui hides behind Sayuri once again when Shintaro tries to talk to her. He tries to get her to talk about her interests, but when he sees her burst into tears, Shintaro thinks she definitely hates him and he should stop talking to her. Sayuri then tells him that she likes books but hates when people sit next to her in the library, so she reads in the club room. While they're still deciding where to celebrate, the festival across the street excites everyone, and Hisui comes out of her shell to see it, but she hides behind Sayuri again when she sees Shintaro. They walk through the festival, enjoying the exciting time with their friends, and Hisui reveals that she likes festivals too. Shintaro notices that Sayuri is nowhere to be seen, but then he spots her completely covered in food and festival items. Sayuri dramatically tells Shintaro that he can see something that bothers her, and Shintaro explains that he feels Hisui is afraid of him, not the other girls. Sayuri teases him, suggesting it might be because he saw something. Hisui and Shintaro are startled and explain that it wasn't, but then Noel clarifies that it was perfectly normal. Shintaro's desperate attempt to please Hisui continues, but he keeps rejecting her. Tsumugi saves the day, suggesting they split up to get something to eat. Noel excitedly grabs Shintaro and runs off with him to find food, leaving the other three behind. While the others enjoy the food and the festival's glamour, Sayuri decides to play darts. She opens her eye patch and aims at the target, but misses the teddy bear. Meanwhile, Hisui is amazed to see some glittering balls in a pond. Noel raves about some potatoes, and the girls echo his enthusiasm. Seeing the girls eating, Shintaro decides to go find something himself. While wandering around, he finds roasted corn, but as he continues walking, a cold cucumber catches his eye. Just as he's thinking about buying a cucumber, Hisui bursts in, devouring the cucumbers in amazement. He surprises her once again by speaking to her. Shintaro buys one for himself and one for Hisui, leaving her to eat alone. As she starts walking away, Hisui gathers some courage and mutters that she had the wrong idea, but just as she's about to explain, the other girls call out to Shintaro and interrupt. As the sun is about to set, everyone decides it's time to go home. Shintaro reflects on his day. He hadn't expected to have so much fun and enjoy the summer festival after exams. However, he misses Toa even more and decides to go back to her. Suddenly, Hisui shifts everyone's attention to Sayuri, who begins to speak dramatically about the sunset and moonrise. Noel thinks the scene looks like something out of an anime. Sayuri continues singing and starts walking slowly toward the edge of the bridge. Just as she reaches the edge, Shintaro sees her and runs to save her. Sayuri jumps off the bridge and Shintaro leaps after her, forgetting he can fly, and falls into the river. As everyone panics, Hisui takes a step forward and jumps into the river. As Shintaro begins to sink to the bottom of the river, a hand reaches out to him and he sees Hisui rescuing him. After getting out of the river, Hisui finally gathers the courage to tell him that she isn't used to talking to boys, and that's why she's nervous nervous around him. They both apologize and make amends, but just then, a light begins to shine around Hisui, and a halo appears around her head. At first, they think she's an angel, but then a shell appears behind her back, and they realize she's a Kappa. Tsumugi faints after discovering the truth, but Sayuri explains that she didn't tell them because Hisui wouldn't let her, explaining that she would turn into a Kappa if she got wet an hour after eating cucumbers. Hisui is shy, but everyone accepts her, and moments later, Towa arrives and meets Hisui. She gets so excited that her wings sprout. Later, Shintaro starts telling Towa about his day and how he got angry, but then he realizes that he's never actually seen Towa angry. Towa tries to tell him about all the times she's been angry, but as she tries to remember, she realizes that she's never actually been angry. At first, Shintaro thinks it's because she's an angel, but then he realizes he knows an angel with quite a few temper problems, referring to Shu. Shintaro is captivated by the aroma of the soup, so Towa gives him some to try. She notices his hands are full of plates, so she tries to feed him. Shintaro gets shy, so he puts down the plates and takes the vegetables from her. As he tastes the food, he realizes that Towa isn't just an angel, she's a literal angel. On the way home after the semester ends, Noel notices a new pastry shop. Excited, she grabs Shintaro's arm and pulls him inside to take a look. Meanwhile, Towa, who happens to be passing by, sees Shintaro with his friends. She's thrilled, and just as she's about to call his name, she sees Noel giving him sweets to feed him. Her excitement turns to sadness and anger when she remembers that he refused to eat from her hands. However, she doesn't quite grasp the whole picture, as Shintaro also refuses to eat from Noel's hands. When Shintaro gets home and tells Towa he brought her a cake, he finds her sitting in a corner. He thinks she's not feeling well or is upset with him, but even Towa herself doesn't know how she feels. She wonders if it's jealousy, but then agrees to eat the cake. While they enjoy it, Shintaro tells Towa that he went to the bakery with Noel and Tsumugi, but he liked it and wanted to share it with her. He also mentions that since it's summer vacation, they could go out somewhere, but he's still a student with limited money, so they can only go for walks or somewhere inexpensive. Towa likes the idea, but tells him she's happy just living with him. Meanwhile, Noel watches a movie and reminisces about his childhood. He remembers how he struggled to make friends and maybe hasn't completely overcome that yet, but now he goes to school, works part-time, and has a friend, Shintaro, who is better than 100 friends. While Noel is checking her phone, she sees a movie she's been wanting to see and decides to surprise Shintaro at work by going to the movies with him. The next day, Noel visits Shintaro at his job. When she approaches him, she sees that the rest of her friends are already there. Shintaro thinks she's there as a customer, but Noel tells him she needs to talk to him about something. Since her shift ends at 3, she asks Shintaro if he wants to go to a movie with her. However, Shintaro tells her he's covering for someone else and will be free after 6. He suggests rescheduling, but today's show is the last one. Tears fill Noel's eyes, but then Sayuri remembers that Hisui has read the book but never seen the movie. All the girls step in to save the day and offer to go with Noel. However, Noel wanted to do something friendly with her friend Shintaro and is now stuck with other people. Meanwhile, it's Towa's first time at the movies, so the girls explain all the rules to her. They get some food and popcorn before the movie starts and head inside. As they begin explaining the rules, Towa grabs Noel's hand because the darkness frightens her. The film opens with a boy enjoying the serene view of the river. He hears a voice from nowhere and looks around, only to find a cat in front of him. At first, he ignores it because cats can't talk, but to his surprise, the cat is talking. Without explaining anything, the cat leads him to the supposed haunted house. The boy follows the cat as it walks inside, up the stairs, and day turns to night. A somber blue light fills the air, and a girl appears out of nowhere. Noel and Towa share popcorn while enjoying the film. The main characters run as the film reaches its climax, the suspense continuing to build, leaving the girls on the edge of their seats. Finally, the film ends, and Noel and Towa realize they've never seen a movie like this before. However, Noel wanted to watch it with Shintaro. Sayuri suggests watching the film with Shintaro once it's released online. Noel and Tsumugi cheer in sync with excitement and plan to discuss it further when they meet Shintaro. As they walk home, Towa can't stop talking about the movie, while Noel can't stop thinking about Shintaro. However, as a reader of the original material, Hisui believes they skipped some things, but that the story is accurate. She explains how the cat was saying the older sister's line from the original story. The discussion catches Noel's attention, and she starts talking about the movie too. Realizing they're all completely engrossed in the story, they decide to sit down and reveal their fangirl colors. As they continue talking about the story and the details of the movie, Noel realizes she's having fun even without Shintaro. The girls start thanking her because she's the reason they're having so much fun. Noel feels embarrassed for having been jealous of Shintaro's friends and for acting like a child because she had so much fun with them just moments ago. She thanks everyone for joining her, even though they aren't friends. Hearing not friends shocks everyone because to them, Noel is a friend. Noel is scared because he doesn't know how friendships work and he didn't even ask them to be his friends. Tsumugi explains to her that everyone is friends, even if she didn't ask. Noel runs away crying with happiness. She's happy to have made friends, and it's all thanks to Shintaro. However, she wonders if they're friends to her in the same way she is to Shintaro because she feels differently about him. Just then, she sees Shintaro in front of her, and she realizes she feels something different for him. She tells Shintaro that she thinks he's not just her friend, but her best friend. Before Shintaro can say anything, the girls interrupt them. Shintaro doesn't respond and joins them while Noel stands there wondering about the whole best friend thing. Later that night, the air conditioning in Shintaro's apartment breaks down, so he and Towa are cooling off in the bathtub to escape the heat. When Shintaro catches a glimpse of Towa's exposed thighs, all the blood rushes to his lower region, and before he can have a nervous breakdown, Sayuri appears at the apartment window with an invitation to summer camp at Hisui's house, which Shintaro accepts mainly because of the air conditioning. However, when Shintaro and Towa find themselves outside a giant building the next day, they're unsure if they'll meet the others at the top. Then a guard calls out their names and invites everyone inside. When Shintaro sees the helicopter on the roof, he's startled by the opulence, while Hisui welcomes them. After recovering from the excitement of the helicopter ride, they wonder how Hisui is so rich, but they remember her incredibly wealthy grandfather. As they walk toward the camp, they're greeted by the twin maids Kujaku and Aoi, who explain their backgrounds. While everyone is awestruck by the enormous place, the maids pamper them and explain that this is the smallest of their vacation homes. They find a beautiful bathing pond, which the maids explain was built by one of Hisui's ancestors during the Edo period. Kappas controlled water, and that power proved useful in building an empire. However, the pond has a sad history surrounding it, about two lovers who tried to exchange their shirikadama for love and died. Legend says that whoever confesses their love by the pond lives together forever. The maids awkwardly explain that shirikadama is found in a person's private parts. After the maids leave, Sayuri begins the occult club's summer camp by mentioning that everyone has an activity planned after dinner, so they are free until then. It's not lunchtime yet, so everyone thinks she has something fun planned, but Sayuri dismisses the idea because everyone in the Hisui family enjoys sumo wrestling. Then the maids offer to show them a match, but Shintaro refuses. The maids then ask if they want to swim in the ocean. The girls are excited to see a room full of swimsuits. Shintaro decides to let them try them on and asks the maids about men's swimsuits. The maids are surprised to hear that Shintaro is a man and begin to crowd around him, worshipping him. Meanwhile, on the beach, the maids apologize to Shintaro because they thought he was a tomboy from a wealthy family, but his parents raised him as a boy. It took them by surprise because they didn't think Hisui would be friends with a boy. The maids explain that Hisui will become Japan's #1 Kappa someday, and she has to remain pure to obtain the shirakodama, which is why she's always been surrounded by girls. Shintaro wonders if he should stay there, but then Towa catches his attention. Seeing her in a swimsuit, Shintaro doesn't know where to look because she's like an angel, but then the other girls come out too. However, Tsumugi feels insecure because she didn't know she was going to the beach with Shintaro. Noel is excited to play beach volleyball, but Shintaro rejects her, blushing at the thought of them. Sayuri appears in an all-black outfit since the beach sun is too much for a vampire. Noel grabs Shintaro's arm and leads him to the beach, the other girls following behind. After having fun playing beach volleyball, they decide to take a break and enjoy a barbecue. While enjoying the barbecue, Noel tells Shintaro about Towa's reaction to seeing the ocean for the first time. She couldn't believe it was all salt water. Although Hisui and Shintaro are talking now, she's still surprised when Shintaro calls her by name. To break the ice, he asks if he can call her Hisui, which only makes her more panicked, but she eventually agrees. However, when Shintaro calls her Hisui, she runs to Sayuri because she's never been called by her first name before, and it made her uncomfortable. While Towa sits with Shintaro, she tells him about her first experience at the beach. She's amazed by how the ocean sparkles and how the sand feels, but she finds swimsuits a little embarrassing. As they enjoy the sunset and talk about how fun their summer vacation was, the maids bring them towels and ask if they'd like to bathe in the hot springs. However, it's a shame that the house only has a women's hot spring, so Shintaro will have to use the well for now. Noel asks Shintaro when he'll come and check it out, thinking it's normal, but then realizes it was just another joke. After Shintaro cleans up in the well, Sayuri appears out of nowhere, shows him her swimsuit, and leaves. Meanwhile, the girls enjoy the hot springs and wonder why they're named after Hisui. Sayuri explains that the Kappa leader named them for Hisui's first bath. Noel turns bright red and wishes Shintaro had joined them. Tsumugi starts imagining them bathing with Shintaro and quickly regrets it. While Sayuri is telling them about washing their hair, something else catches Tsumugi's attention. Noel, being innocent, asks if she wants to touch her when she catches her staring. Tsumugi is terrified and embarrassed, while Sayuri tells the innocent girls lies about the tradition of women touching each other. Noel realizes that something else she thought was real was pure fiction. Sayuri tells Hisui that they will grow up too, but Hisui doesn't understand what she means. Suddenly it starts snowing because Noel took the comment seriously. When the girls start taking forever and Shintaro begins to get bored, the maids offer to fight again, but he refuses. The maids tell him they've considered letting him stay and decided to forget he's a man because Hisui is having fun. However, they won't take it lightly if he does anything to her. After a fun day, they have dinner and play cards, but they keep falling asleep during the game, so Shintaro suggests sleeping. While the girls sleep together, Shintaro is left alone. Unable to sleep, he remembers the maid telling him he could use the bath after dinner. He goes to the hot bath and is instantly captivated by the atmosphere. When Shintaro enters the bath, he suddenly sees Hisui sitting there. He decides to run away in embarrassment, but Hisui tells him he can stay. Impulsive actions. But then Hisui called him and thanked him for coming to camp because he brought brought the party with him. Shintaro realized how much he loved Sayuri and thought he had joined the school for her, but Hisui told him that she had joined because she had found an oracle in middle school, saved an old woman from drowning, and the oracle had suggested she expose herself to men for new experiences and given her a talisman to bring her more luck with men. The Kappa takes things related to water very seriously, which is why she decided to join the co-ed school, but she couldn't adjust. However, when she met Shintaro and the others, she realized she had been right to choose this school. Hearing Hisui's story made going to camp worthwhile for Shintaro. As he returned to his room, the maids caught him breaking his word and, as punishment, made him their sumo training partner. After the exhausting training session with the maids, Shintaro goes to his room to sleep. He collapses onto his bed and says goodnight to Towa out of habit. But before he can fall asleep, Sayuri's sudden entrance startles him, and she calls him to summon the demon. As everyone gathers, still half asleep, Sayuri shows them the summoning book. She and Hisui tried it before but failed, and she thinks it will work for the others. Sayuri tells them the phrase they must chant and explains that there's no way to know what might appear. It's called a demon summoning, but it's a call to all spiritual beings. A spirit might appear instead of a demon, depending on which being has the strongest desire to come. Shintaro, like everyone else, becomes interested, but like all rituals, this one requires a sacrifice. Before chanting, they have to sacrifice a dark hen that has never laid an egg, but Sayuri feels bad about it, so she decides to use a chicken-shaped cookie instead. The ritual begins. Sayuri sacrifices the chicken cracker, and the wind stirs. Sayuri starts chanting the invocation phrase, and everyone joins in. As they continue chanting, the wind begins to swirl. They keep singing, and suddenly the wind picks up. A small tornado appears, and then it calms down. Suddenly, a tiny angel appears before them, but quickly vanishes. While the other girls are thrilled that it worked, Sayuri faints. It turns out that Shintaro and Towa recognize the angel as Shu. Sayuri gets up and thinks that perhaps the reason an angel appeared is because another angel already existed there, but they know it works, so now they can start again. The invocation excites everyone, and the girls decide to officially join the club. Meanwhile, the little angel wonders if she was seeing things. The girls feel more awake than ever after the invocation and want to do more. Noel suggests fireworks and explains to Towa what they are because she doesn't know. However, they don't have any fireworks, but then the maids save the day and reveal a room full of them. Everyone is enjoying the fireworks, and Shintaro helps Towa light hers. While struggling with the lighter, Towa worries about the explosion, but Shintaro assures her it won't explode. Shintaro holds the bright fireworks to light them and hands them to Towa. The beautiful flashes completely captivate Towa, and she begins to admire them while Shintaro stares intently at her. However, Tsumugi, who was still watching, couldn't help but feel jealous. Shintaro joins Noel and Tsumugi and notices that they've been calling each other by their first names. Tsumugi is annoyed when Noel says he does it out of habit because of Shintaro. Tsumugi starts blushing, imagining using her first name with Shintaro. She calls out her first name, but he tells her it feels better the way it is. As Shintaro lights his fireworks, Tsumugi realizes how close and yet far they are, but decides it's better this way for now. While everyone is playing with the fireworks, Shintaro stares at Towa and realizes how much he likes summer vacation now. Upon arriving at the station, Towa is excited. It's not just about the sky tree, but about spending the day with Shintaro. Seeing the enormous tower, Towa is amazed. Shintaro explains that all the TV shows she watches originate from this tower. They head inside the shopping mall and spot a yukata rental shop, deciding to go in and have a look. Shintaro starts blushing at how lovely Towa looks, and he's not the only one. Passers-by are also captivated by her beauty. Shintaro checks the prices for the observatory and decides that since he's there, he should go all the way to the top. However, to his disappointment, the gallery is closed today. Towa realizes it costs money and decides some radishes would be better, but then she panics and starts taking off her clothes when she realizes the yukata also costs money. Shintaro tells her he wanted her to wear a yukata and that he wanted to go to the observatory with her. They take the elevator to the observatory and Towa finds the open city skyline beautiful. Shintaro realizes that angels have very good eyesight when Towa points out someone reading a book in the city. Towa didn't understand why the other humans were scared. She became frightened when she learned that humans couldn't fly and could die if they fell from a height, but Shintaro told her there was no need to be afraid because she would save him if he fell. Shintaro explained to Towa that all the people carrying bags had returned home to see their families. Towa asked if he missed his family, but he told her they were all abroad, though with each other's company, neither of them felt lonely. They then decided to have lunch outdoors, visiting some places, eating, and visiting museums. As they walked through the crowd, Shintaro lost sight of Towa. Towa started looking around, searching everywhere for him, but then Shintaro grabbed her. To avoid getting lost, they held onto each other's clothes. Shintaro thought they could have held hands, but things kept getting awkward. After night falls, they decide to have dinner before going home, but then Towa gets sad and stops. She doesn't want to go home because she's having fun. Shintaro comforts her by telling her they have many places to visit during summer vacation, then shows her the artifact she liked in the shop. Her silence makes him think she doesn't like it, but then Towa thanks him. She wants to pay him but doesn't know how. Suddenly, she realizes something and runs off into a dark alley. Towa tells Shintaro to close his eyes and slowly moves forward. Shintaro thinks she's going to kiss him, gets scared, and opens his eyes only to realize he's floating in the sky. He continues screaming in fear, but Toa calms him down, telling him she wanted to pay him for the gift. Shintaro looks around and realizes how angels see the world. When Toa first arrived in this world, she was excited and worried, but it's thanks to Shintaro that she was able to see so many places, meet people, make friends, and feel the warmth of the world, and she hopes to continue learning about the world with him.